I died in 2002 and came back to life. Because I'd heard so much about near-death experiences with a light at the end of the tunnel, I had the opportunity to be analytical while it was happening and can describe it to you now. There was a pulsing darkness around me with a dim light coming from below. I reached out and felt the walls of a tunnel, smooth and yielding, and my body that should have been strong was weak and puny. I was not ready to go toward that light yet. I had not been fully developed. I had heard people tell me about the comforting darkness and that when they were being pushed inexorably toward the light, it felt cold and they didn't want to go. I can relate. The warmth that enveloped me was very familiar and the light was repellent. There was a rope-like cord sticking out of my belly. I followed it with my eyes back into the darkness. Without knowing why, I grabbed it in my tiny hands, twisting myself around to face the other way. Hand over hand, I tried to climb it like a rope back out of the tunnel to my previous life, but there was nowhere to go, no room to move. While I knew the life I would go back to would not be the best possible one, I was determined to give it another shot. It was too much of a gamble to give it up and continue. First, all I knew was that my new life would be as a mammal, and what little I could see of my new body I'd not formed enough to give a clue what kind. With the rudimentary hands, I might have been a monkey or a tree sloth, or if I became human, I might be unwanted. The thought of waiting there with no idea for how long, only to be born and left somewhere to die, filled me with terror. I was completely at the mercy of someone I didn't know. Some of you will scoff and roll your eyes, but that's what I thought at the time. This might be hard for you to believe. Looking back on my previous life, I remembered what I'd said as a child when they asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up. I had said, in all seriousness, a hero. That plan had gotten sidetracked after moving to the U.S. when I was 8. I instead became a brat, then a troubled youth, then a schmuck, and finally, a villain. Realizing that, I had to go back and make amends. I prayed desperately, knowing that there was someone to pray to, not necessarily the God that we are taught to believe in, but I will call it God because it's easier. I appealed to that God, and it answered. Perhaps this will anger you because it contradicts the beliefs passed down by your religious leaders and parents, but in all fairness, how can they know for sure if they haven't gone through what I did? How is a belief a good argument against what I saw with my own eyes? There was no loud, booming voice. It was rather the feeling of knowledge pouring into my tiny mind. I connected with God, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to describe it to you now. First of all, God is not he or she because it can and will never be limited by either. To suggest that it would have one gender or the other means there must be an equal and opposite gender somewhere, and if there's room enough for two beings, there must be something larger to contain them both, and what could be outside of that? The conceit in claiming God created us in his image must be done away with. We created God in our image. The jealous Old Testament tyrant with a hit-or-miss system of divine retribution is far from the truth. The real God is everything and everywhere. God never came down to earth because that very act suggests it wasn't already there. That presupposes opposition, and there can be none. I'll get into that later. Let me say, for the moment, that I am Catholic, because out of all the religions on this planet, the best one, in my opinion, is that of Jesus, because no other motivates his followers to do good just for goodness' sake. Look up Caritas, and you will find that the first responders to almost any disaster are Catholics devoted to helping victims all over the world. They exist everywhere, and do what they do not for any material gain. Then there are the clergy who, with the obvious exception of predators I will cover later, devote their entire lives to the service of God, which means essentially the service of their neighbors. Then there are the people on missions who travel to other countries to build homes, install running water for entire villages, and heal the sick, and do it all for no profit whatsoever. That is not found anywhere else, at least on this planet, to the degree that it's done by the church. That said, there is something inconvenient about my experience. It turns out that, of all religions, Buddhism comes the closest to reality. Before I explain how, I'd like to first assure you that I'm not about to debunk your religion or lack thereof. I knew in that moment that religion is, at its essence, a good thing because it gives people direction in their lives and makes them feel better about death. Unless you have an experience like I have, you cannot know what death is like, which is scary. If we choose to believe in heaven, we'll be comforted. If there is an authority figure that will judge your actions and send you to either heaven or hell, neither of which exist, then you will be theoretically less likely to rape and steal and kill your neighbor. Of course, that does happen in the name of God in many instances, but that's only because truly evil people wear the mask of religion. Evil existed long before good. The worship of devils is an ancient practice, and just because it's not out in the open does not mean that it is ended. Baudelaire said the best of the devil's tricks was persuading the world he didn't exist. While I maintain there is no devil, there are definitely people who believe in one, and worse, worship him. The devil is more of a metaphor for our nature, our urge to dominate others, which is necessary in the wild, but must be resisted if we wish to live in civilization. The very foundation of civilization depends upon cooperation, lest we fall to ruin and end up back in the wild. It has happened many times before, and our ancestors' struggle out of it will have been in vain if we backslide. That bestial, predatory, amoral behavior must be restrained out of respect for the rule of law and consideration of others. This is where Jesus comes in. Whether he existed or not is irrelevant. He came into being as an actual man or as an ideal, specifically to fight devil worshippers. He embodies the standard to which we all must live if we are to continue coexisting. The alternative can be seen on every news channel.